The college football playoff rankings are out, and they hate your team.
You are Locked On College Football, smothered and covered, with your host, Barrett Sallee. Your one-stop shop for everything college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. My name is Barrett Sallee. Appreciate you checking out the show on this beautiful Wednesday. You can follow me on X, on Instagram, everywhere at Barrett Sallee. 2 R's, 2 T's, 2 L's, 2 E's. Thank you for making this your first listen. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed as long as you win that first $5 bet. That's right. Cash ticket for $5. You get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com. Okay, it's college football playoff reactions. That's what we do. Everyone gets mad. Look, I'm going to put these up on the screen. If you're listening, we'll go down real quick. We'll go through the top 25. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, Georgia rounding out the top 10. Tennessee, Boise State, SMU, BYU, Texas A&M in top 15. Colorado, Clemson, South Carolina, Army, Tulane at number 20. Arizona State up at 21. Iowa State at 22. Missouri, UNLV, and Illinois after that. Okay, so those are the rankings. We'll talk about the bracket here in a little bit, but the rankings first. I think there are two things about this. Actually, one thing that really jumps out more than anything else. It's that they favor bad losses more than good wins. And I'm going to point to a couple things. Well, let's just throw Notre Dame out. They love Notre Dame, whatever. That's a whole different conversation. But Tennessee has a bad loss. It's on the outside looking in. Yeah, it's number 11, but it's on the outside looking in. It's got a terrible loss to Arkansas. It also has a win over Alabama, but it's got a terrible loss to Arkansas. Meanwhile, Alabama has a bad loss to Vandy, but it also has 2 signature wins with wins over Georgia. And so I think with Alabama, there's name brand value there. There's no doubt about that. The fact that they're hot, that matters. They have a win over South Carolina and Georgia. That matters big time. So you're talking about an Alabama team that doesn't have that gross, or doesn't have as gross and disgusting of a loss as Tennessee. Tennessee's loss is bad. But then you look at Georgia and you're like, well, dang, they lost to Alabama and Ole Miss. They're ahead of Tennessee. Well, yeah. Bad losses over good wins. That's the lesson here. And you can see it in the SEC, but you can also see it in the ACC and the Big 12. Because if you look at number 12 and number 13, Boise State is one of the top 4 conference champions. It's ranked number 12. We'll get to the brackets in a second, but it's ranked number 12. SMU is ranked 13. They're not in. BYU is ranked 14. They are in. So SMU's at 13, ahead of BYU, despite the fact that BYU beat SMU. We saw that game. We saw SMU at 13 beat BYU, or lose to BYU, which is at 14. Why is SMU ahead of BYU? Because it has a better loss. BYU lost to Kansas at home. That's a bad loss. It's certainly worse than SMU's loss to BYU. I love this beautifully dysfunctional sport. It is fantastic. But I think it's clear, with the exception of Notre Dame, because Notre Dame is God's gift, and I say that jokingly, but they do get a lot of the benefit of the doubt. That bad losses are definitely focusing on that. Okay, let us look at the projected college football playoff bracket. Now, this is where things get very interesting. You get Oregon, Texas, and Miami with buys as the Big Ten, SEC, and ACC champs, respectively, although Miami's down there at number 8. Then 4th is Boise State, number 12 team in the country, 4th seed because it gets a bye, because it's one of the top 4 conference champions, because it jumped the Big 12 champion, which is BYU. Looks a little weird. I get it. Everything in the sport's weird. But the last 2 out, Tennessee and SMU. We already talked about SMU. Tennessee on the outside looking in, despite the fact that Tennessee is ranked number 11. Tennessee fans, I get you. I know you're upset. I'd be upset too. I get it. You are being disrespected. I don't know why. Like, look, in this day and age, looking at these rankings, right? Tennessee's in a tough spot because it's hard for them to jump a lot of these teams. They're not going to dump Georgia unless Georgia loses to Georgia Tech or UMass. But Georgia Tech, right? That could happen. It's not likely, but it could. They're not going to jump Alabama because they're so far behind. So the head-to-head that you thought you had, that golden ticket that you thought you had in your back pocket, well, it's gone. It's useless. So what you thought was a big deal, and it still was a big deal to beat Alabama, obviously. Personally, for rivalry purposes, of course you wanted to beat Alabama. It's there. That's going to be on the mantle. But if you wanted to use it as a springboard to make the college football playoff, you don't have it. That's unfortunate. You don't have it. On the field, I just get the sense that Tennessee is just not getting any respect whatsoever. The offense has been okay. Defense has been great. Running game's been great. They all have flaws. Every team's got flaws. Miami's 3 spots better than Tennessee. 3 spots ahead of Tennessee. Who would you take on a neutral field right now? Would you take Tennessee or Miami on a neutral field right now? If you say Miami, I'd like to check your head because you are insane. But it, to me, feels like they've already slotted these teams in certain spots. And the ACC leader, champion, needs to be in the back end of the top 10, which shuffles better teams. In last week's case, Georgia. In this week's case, Tennessee, out. And then you have the second ACC team just sort of lingering. The last 2 weeks, it's been SMU. Tennessee deserves to be there. Tennessee is a playoff caliber team. It's got a hell of a win. It's got a bad loss. The committee favors bad losses over good wins, clearly. And it's in a position now where, unfortunately, there's not much time. They're probably not going to the SEC championship game. Georgia's probably not going to lose to Georgia Tech and certainly is not going to lose to UMass. So I feel bad for Tennessee. I really do. I feel bad for Tennessee fans. We already talked a little bit about BYU and SMU. Let's talk a little bit about those Aggies at 15. A conversation came up. There's a big gap there between number 3 Texas and number 15 Texas A&M. I heard somebody on TV say, maybe it was Joey, said that A&M's got a tricky game at Auburn. Fine, whatever. But Thanksgiving weekend, we have Texas and Texas A&M. A&M, if they win out, they're fine. A signature win over Texas would replace what the signature win was, and that was LSU. And certainly recency bias would take effect. I heard that Texas would be out if they lose. That was what somebody said on TV. And I'm sitting there looking around going, how? How? Because again, bad losses matter. Texas would not have bad losses. They'd have a loss to Georgia. They'd have a loss to Texas A&M. Both of those would be top 10 losses eventually when all is said and done. And I know you can look at Texas's schedule and say, well, yeah, they hadn't beaten anybody. Fine, I get it. Texas ain't losing or missing out if it loses. Now, if it loses twice, we'll see. I don't think they'll punish an SEC championship game loser. Ward Manuel was asked about that. He dodged the question. I would hate to be that man. I would hate to have that job because nothing you say makes sense. Nothing he has said makes sense. But I don't think Texas is in a situation where if it loses, it's out. Because they would have two tolerable losses. And apparently losses matter more than wins. Apparently losses matter more than wins. So there you have it. UNLV's in the top 25. I've been beating that drum for a long time. So there you have it. I don't understand why Missouri's still at 23, but whatever. Whatever. All right, we'll just take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the bracket. We'll talk about some surprises in the bracket. We'll talk about a conference that's a little conflicted, and we'll talk about things that we're excited to see. We'll do that next. This is Locked On. College football smothered and covered, powered by Locked On. Today's show brought to you by Mint Mobile. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get a wireless plan for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it really is that easy to get a wireless plan for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was actually the time I spent on hold canceling my previous provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege, mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll see right there a 3-month plan that's only $15 a month, including that unlimited plan. All plans come with a high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone number with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabits on unlimited plan. Additional taxes and fees and restrictions may apply. See mintmobile.com for additional details. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the actual bracket. The SEC. I have the bracket up right now. We're going to go through it real quick because the first round matchups are what really intrigue me. You'd get Alabama versus Notre Dame in South Bend. You'd get Ole Miss versus Indiana in Bloomington. You'd get Georgia versus Penn State in Happy Valley. Those are 3 of the 4 first round matchups. 3 SEC teams going on the road. Now, the SEC's got 4 in right now, which is kind of what we expected, same as the Big Ten. But you have 3 SEC teams right now on the road in late fall, early winter. Fans of the Big Ten, fans in the North have got to be standing up and going nuts because that is something that they've wanted for a very long time. You don't play out of conference games. Oh, yeah, we do in September. We'll do it in December. Okay, well, they might. So you're talking about a situation right now, and I know it's not going to end like this, whatever, but this could be a referendum on the 2 conferences. You could see the SEC and Big Ten play in cold weather environments. You could see the SEC and Notre Dame in a cold weather environment. When you have 3 SEC teams going to the upper Midwest or the northern part of the country in December in playoff games, think about how much fun that would be, but more importantly, think about the narratives that would come from that. Don't care who wins the national championship. Because one of the biggest geographical talking points has been what happens if the SEC goes to play up north in cold weather. If we did right now, we'd see it. We'd have a chance to actually answer that question. Unfortunately, it's in a 12-team playoff and not just in a regular game in December, but whatever. But then at the same time, the SEC getting 4 and perhaps 5-team teams. That's the thing is the SEC probably doesn't want to play road games, 3 road games in the first round. The Big Ten wouldn't have to do that because they've got 4 of the top 5. But they probably don't want to do that. But the flip side is that, oh, yeah, Tennessee is the first one out. So what would you rather have if you're the SEC? You'd rather have the chance of getting a 5th team in. Right now, Tennessee's knocking on that door. Right now, you're talking about a Tennessee team that suddenly has become a big Army fan, a Tennessee team that is just rooting for mass chaos in the Big 12, mass chaos in the ACC. And if it happens, you're talking about a 5 SEC team tournament. But right now, as it stands, 3 road games in the first round for SEC teams. That would be freaking incredible. Arizona State is not in this projected bracket. BYU is at number 12. However, they're number 14. What are the Big 12 teams are back there? Yeah, Colorado at 16. Uh-oh. Arizona State at 21. Have we thought about the fact that right there in the bottom left corner, you see BYU, you could put a little Sun Devil logo there instead? You might be able to do that at some point relatively soon, because dirty little secret is that Arizona State controls its destiny to make the college football playoff. They play BYU this week. I don't think people are looking at that game and recognizing just how big that is. Arizona State BYU can massively shape what the college football playoff looks like. Arizona State wins out there in the playoff, right? They beat BYU. BYU would have 2 losses. Arizona State then beats Arizona, goes into the Big 12 championship game and wins probably over Colorado. All right. So we know Colorado controls its destiny. But Arizona State does too. Kenny Dillingham, the Sun Devils were picked last preseason. Last. And you're talking about them on November the 19th in the year of our Lord 2024, controlling their destiny to earn a chance to win a national championship. I know we're going to sit here and talk about Clark Lee and Kurt Signetti as coaches of the year. And look, I get it. Kenny Dillingham has done a hell of a job at Arizona State. I'm floored that we're sitting here looking at Arizona State at number 21 in the country. But keep an eye on that. We talk about wrenches in the works, right? We talked about you guys know Washington State was my ultimate curveball. They went and screwed it up by losing to freaking New Mexico. Now Arizona State's my curveball. We'll see what happens when Arizona State gets cooking. They will beat BYU this weekend. Buddy, watch out for that. We'll take a break. When we come back, talk about some narratives that came out of the selection committee show. I don't know if I like them. What are they? We'll talk about it next. It's College Football Smothered and Covered, powered by Locked On. Hey guys, let me talk to you about Skylight. I got a Skylight for my dad, my mom, and my mother-in-law for Christmas a few years back. They love it. They absolutely love it. All I do, every picture I have, I put all of my pictures into cloud folders for seasons, like fall 2024, summer 2024, whatever. And so I put them all in there. I don't keep them on my phone. I put them in the cloud. And as soon as I put them in the cloud, I also send them to the Skylight. So all of the grandparents, we call them grandparents, our parents, have the ability to put them right there on their Skylight, right there where they value it most. My dad has his in his kitchen, looks at it all the time. My mom has hers in the kitchen, looks at it all the time. I walk in, I'm like, oh, that's when my 13-year-old was 3. Time flew. So Skylight does a great job. You know, maybe gift giving isn't your love. Do you ever think it and wind up with something disappointing or nothing at all? You buying for someone who has everything or just seems unpleasable? Are you tired of wasting money on useless clutter that no one needs? Skylight's there for you. It's so easy to use, sets up in less than 60 seconds. It's got seamless sharing. Invite friends and family to easily share photos free via the Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription is required. You can add new photos straight from your phone anywhere. It's amazing. I would do it almost instantaneously. Send it to their email address that is used for Skylight. Boom, straight there. You can do it from across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep your loved ones in the loop, and they'll feel so much more connected to you. And I tell you, it is a conversation piece too. My mom, she likes to have LCR, which is a game that old people play. Sorry, Mom, you're old. But she has those nights with her neighborhood friends, and it's just right there. And they always ask, "Hey, where was that picture taken? When was this picture taken? Where are the kids in that mountain? Does that tell you? Where are they?" Conversation starter does a great job. Right now is a special limited time offer for our listeners. You get $20 off your first purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed if you win that $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out your latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you bet $5, and that $5 bet cashes in. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, last thing before we wrap it up. We had that playoff. I know a lot of those guys at ESPN. A lot of them are my friends, and I actually was texting with a couple of them during the playoff ranking show. One of them was actually on set. I won't tell you who. But they were talking about different scenarios, and they had the simulator, and you win out and you get a greater than 99% chance. You lose this week, it drops to 62% chance. I don't know how that stuff's factored in. We don't know how to we've never done this before. So how are we supposed to know, let a computer decide what works and what doesn't when we've never actually been in a 12-team playoff for? Nevertheless, I digress. One talking point that came up, and I know it angered a lot of people, people in the media, people who are big into this, would be that what happens with Indiana? Do they just bench Curtis Rourke this weekend? Take a loss? I told you this was coming. I told you we'd be in a situation where somebody would legitimately say, you know what? Bench your QB. Get yourself ready for the future. The future being the college football playoff. No idea it'd be Indiana. Never guessed that. But we knew it would happen, and it happened on Tuesday night, and it really pisses me off. Two things. One, that looks terrible. The committee is going to punish you for that. I don't care what they say. They're going to punish you for that. And two, what my boy Greg McElroy said, it's a culture killer. It is. It's a culture killer. But three, it assumes that all these players care about is the playoff. That's not how football works. It is a week-by-week thing. Indiana only cares about beating Ohio State right now. That's it. And I actually had Brent Key on the show, Georgia Tech head coach. I had him on before the trip to Ireland. And I said, hey, look, what are you planning for beyond this season? You look, well, I think it was about Georgia. And I was like, look, I know you only worry about day-to-day things, next step, next snap, next opponent, whatever. And we get all mad at you for speaking in coach speak, but you guys live like that. You guys live with next step, next opponent. And he thanked me for it. So no, you're not going to sit here and tell Indiana players, hey, you know what? We're having this undefeated season. We're going to bench our dude. We're going to bench our dude. Because all they care about is what's next. What's next is Ohio State. I guarantee you, Ohio State players don't care about anything else about what's next. And what's next is Indiana. But what you heard on ESPN from one analyst, the other, not all of them, just one, arguing that a quarterback should be benched to preserve college football playoff hopes is what's wrong with this whole system. What's wrong with this whole system? Because it shows that the NFLization of college football is happening. It's not about winning a game. It's not about beating your rival. It's not about pride in the eyes of one of these people. I hate that, man. I hate that. And on a side note, before we go on, here's the top 25 rankings again. I just want you guys to sit here and think about this for 1 second. In fact, I'm going to end this show like this. And I want you guys to just marinate on it for a couple of hours. What if we still had the BCS and only the top 2 teams made the meaningful playoff? This season would be unreal. Unreal. We devoted the first full segment of this show discussing what matters more, good wins or bad losses. Wouldn't you want to talk about perfection? Think about how big Ohio State, Indiana would be this weekend. It would be bigger than anything we've seen in a very long time. Instead, we've got Joey Galloway out there suggesting that Indiana should bench its quarterback. They're undefeated. We had the BCS, man. This season, the way this landscape is shaken out would be ridiculous. Just marinate on it. Just marinate on it. A little tear coming down my eye. I miss you. I miss you so much, BCS. That'll do it. Sign up for the subtext group. It's right below. It's right below. In the description. Whether you're watching or listening, go down there. You can see it. You can click on it. Sign up. Use promo code college. We can talk, chit chat with each other. We can text each other during games. You want to text me during the games and tell me how stupid I am? Let's go. Let's do it. Hey, thanks for making this your first listen. For your second listen, go check out Spencer McLaughlin, Locked on College Football. Does a great job over there. As for here, we'll be back on Thursday to tell you whose time it is to shine. Until then, have a great day. Have a great night. Talk to you Thursday.